The anime begins with a dragon flying towards the capital of a kingdom. Upon arrival, he imposes his presence by descending on the wall. All the mages had gathered to attack the dragon, charging a powerful beam of radius lux. Yes, that's what it's called, I think. However, this attack wouldn't even tickle the dragon. The magicians lose hope and watch as it charges and expels its powerful fire breath, incinerating the magicians and burning several houses. The fear of dying had invaded the people of the kingdom, however, the dragon rises again, making it clear that this was just a warning. This is how we entered the forest. We are told that this place is full of beasts and spirits, until one day a dragon decided to take shelter in one of the forest caves. The reason for this was to take care of her egg. The next day, the dragon covers it with earth to hide it, and in the process, warms it with her fiery breath so that it stays warm and protected. As she goes to look for food, this is how the hunting day begins, and she manages to locate some wolves. But when she was about to descend, a huge spear pierces her, which had been thrown by the knights of the kingdom. That same night, a pregnant cat had found the cave. However, it was not a simple cat, but a forest creature called Kate Sith, cats that are characterized by their great intelligence. The cat had chosen that cave because it was warm and also because there were mice near it. Over time, her babies had hatched, but the dragon egg did too, emerging from the earth a small red dragon. The cat helps him out, and when she sees him trembling, she approaches him to smell him, assuring him that there is no danger. Due to the closeness he had with the egg, the dragon also wanted to be with her, so the cat adopts him as another of her babies. She herself mentions to us that she had previously raised the babies of other cats, even other magical beasts, so she wonders what this little dragon is going to become. Time had passed, the day had arrived when the cat must teach them to hunt mice. Here we are told that cats of the Kaizip breed are not only intelligent, but also use different types of magic. The power they have is fired from their tail, something that the dragon also tries, but it doesn't come out. But sometime later, it learns to use its wings to take off from the ground. His brothers are amazed when they see this until, inadvertently, he expels fire from his mouth and, as he has not yet mastered it, falls to the ground. No brother suspects this and they celebrate it anyway, to which the cat mentions that it seems he uses a different magic than the rest. He says this so that he doesn't feel different, since he knows perfectly well that he is a dragon. It is there that the cat hears something. Together with her cats, they hide to see. The cause of this is a group of adventurers. The kittens ask their mother what they are. She answers that they are humans. He says that they call this forest the Beginner's Forest, and you can imagine that they hunt some creatures here. He adds that humans are very peculiar beings, as there are some who are very kind, but also others who are too cruel. Some even have abilities that make them stronger than a bear, and highlights that for humans, kitesits are fantastic prey. The kittens, faced with this, are scared, so they decide to memorize their smell to be able to avoid them. The cat observes this with great pride since they will soon be able to leave the nest. However, days later, a magic circle appears under the mother. The kittens worry as they see her body fade away, but her mother calms them down, telling them that this is a summoning spell, so some human must be calling her. All the little brothers cry so that she does not leave them. However, the mother leaves calmly, knowing that they are great hunters and will be able to live on their own, asking them to help each other when necessary. It does not matter if one day they separate, since in this forest there are many of their brothers who will be good to them when they recognize their smell and thus say goodbye to their children. Yes, not even 5 minutes passed and the main character lost his temper twice. No way, life goes on. After a while, the brothers had grown up and all left the nest except for the dragon, which we will call Draco. From that day on, he hunted on his own, and although he could live alone, he couldn't get used to not having anyone. After a while, he sees his sister returning to the cave along with another cat. He doubts that Draco is his brother, but confirms it by that smell they share. It turns out that his sister had just arrived to give birth, making Draco take care of his nephews, teaching them to hunt just like their mother did. They also saw humans, and Draco advises them never to approach them. Time had passed, and her beloved nephews also left the nest. Again, Draco is left alone, until another cat appears, which shares the same scent as his brothers. She tells him that she is about to give birth, and her father told her that she could come to this cave, since there was a cat with large wings that could help her. Draco cries when he hears this, because now he knows that his brothers never left him alone. Several years passed, and finally Draco reached his adult stage. His magic had grown so much that he could now speak with the spirits of the forest, who told him their great truth that he was not a cat. This leaves him very shocked and very sad. He is going to tell his nephews, who are also amazed, but they do not give it importance and ask that he better continue teaching them magic, filling Uncle Draco with joy until the day of his great development arrives, because it is not enough to have lost his mother and know that he is adopted, because while he was flying, he sees how some damn humans skinned cats. Furious, he burned them all without hesitation and asks the spirits why they did this. They tell him that humans do not hunt Khaizit for food, but for their fur. This response infuriates Draco even more, because if it were because of hunger, he can understand it. After all, they must kill to survive, so in this way, he immediately gave a warning to the kingdom. This is named after the dragon that protects cats, warning that if they continue with this, it will burn down the entire kingdom. The magicians prepare to attack, but just like at the beginning, they do nothing to him. In this way, Draco burns a part of the kingdom. The fear of dying had invaded people, but Draco planned to continue with this until he saw a cat stand in front of a girl, which had the same smell as his mother. In this way, he remembers what he had told him about humans, that there are also kind people. Thanks to this, people are saved, but Draco makes one thing very clear to them: he will let them kill the forest cats. He will not forgive them for killing unless it is to survive. If anyone thinks about killing a cat, let them first think of the dragon that protects cats. And after saying this, Draco returned to the forest. In the blink of an eye, months passed, and one night in the royal family's castle, a little prince was tucked in by the maids. However, when they were gone, the little boy sneaked into the garden to practice magic. We watch as he swings his wand as he repeats Valley's Ignet, a fire spell he plans to use on the blade, over and over again. After several attempts, he gives up, stating in frustration that it is impossible, but then he notices the cat at his side and begins to pet it. Yeah, who wouldn't do that? Comment if you would. Here we are told that this little prince was born with very weak mana, which will lead him to have to work much harder than the others to inherit the throne. Thus, we see him trying once again, this time managing to completely burn the leaf. Both he and the cat begin to celebrate, but the little prince realizes this and asks him where it came from, if it is a forest cat. After saying this, he remembers what his master told him. If for some reason a forest cat got lost in the castle, they had to take it back with great care, since if they hurt or killed one, the dragon would return and this time it would incinerate them all. As soon as he remembers this, he takes his hands off the cat, asking if he is lost or if he can return to the forest alone. The cat meowed in response and simply walked away. The next day, the little prince spent his time touring the castle hoping to see the cat again. However, he couldn't find it anywhere, but then, while looking for it at night, he found it sitting waiting for him. So together they accompanied each other while he practiced magic. In this way, the little prince spent several minutes trying to conjure the magic of the previous night, until after several attempts he succeeded. Since then, the cat accompanied him every night to practice his magic, and by spending so much time together, they became very trusting and began to talk to each other. One night, they both even brought food to share, discovering then that the cat had the affinity for the wind. However, all this had been seen by his mentor, so the king, his father, called him the next morning to ask him a few questions, making sure that the cat was not being forcibly held. After confirming that her son has not harmed the cat, she considers that there is no problem with them living together. However, as he said this, the kingdom's bells begin to ring, announcing the arrival of the Emperor Dragon. In the streets of the town, Dracu lands, turning his gaze in search of the cat. At that moment, the little cat appears and begins to speak in the Kite-Shid language. The people around them are confused because they don't understand anything, so they ask if anyone knows how to speak that language. One of the soldiers raises his hand, claiming to know a little. This way, we can understand what they are saying. The cat tells Draco that he wants to teach magic to a human child, to which Draco replies that he now understands why he has been coming to town so much. Furthermore, he asks if perhaps that human child is the prince of that kingdom. The cat answers yes, and that he spends his time practicing every day, but it doesn't work out. He mentions that, unlike theirs, human magic is very unstable. Draco yells at him to stop doing it. Doesn't he remember that humans are dangerous animals? His nephew reassures him that this child is different, since they are friends. At this moment, the little prince standing behind the cat. The cat introduces him as his friend, something that makes Draco remember the time one of his people defended a human girl. At that, the cat speaks to him, asking him if he doesn't remember that he was the one who said that friends should be valued. This catches Draco by surprise, but the cat goes on to say that if he teaches him magic and becomes a great king, maybe he will thank him and decide to protect the cats. Given this, Draco accepts, but first the king thinks to speak to see if he will allow it. Thus, we see him cast a spell that transforms him into a cat, and without further ado, he orders the soldiers to inform the king that the dragon that burned his soldiers wants to meet with him. Yes, showing who is boss. The guards are stunned to see that he can speak their language, but they immediately comply with the order. Thus, we move to the throne room, where the king kneels before Draco, the latter presenting himself as the dragon that protects the cats that inhabit the forest. The king begins to explain that his son apparently spends time with one of the cats he protects. Draco answers that this is one of the little ones he teaches to hunt and use magic, and for some unknown reason he struck up a friendship with the prince. That said, he mentions that he has no problem teaching him magic. The king respectfully questions since it is an advanced secret of sorcery, so teaching it to his son would be equivalent to teaching it to his kingdom. Draco replies that it doesn't matter. After all, he learned to use spirit graces, meaning anyone who can talk to them could use magic of that level. The king is amazed to hear this, as a magic bestowed by the spirits is a coveted art because it could upset the balance of power between the kingdoms, but seeing that he has no problem with them learning it, he feels some admiration for the Dragon Emperor. Hearing what he just called him, Draco is curious about that title they gave him because he really is a fire dragon. The king explains that the name they gave him means Emperor of Dragons, a title that humans use for dragons of great power. Draco considers this a very ostentatious title for him, so he proposes that from now on they simply call him Nekuryu. After all, he was raised as a cat from birth. The king laughs and, agreeing, promises that they will address him that way. This being the case for a long time, the prince learned magic from cats, and when he became king, he taught it to his people. Over time, she had children who were accompanied by different forest cats, who taught them magic, played with them, and kept them company. Since then, the people of the kingdom did not hurt them again, thus creating a way of life in which humans protect the cats and they teach them magic in return, while, on the other hand, the dragon that lives in the forest continues to teach hunting and magic to the kittens. Before continuing, we return to the moment when the mother cat was summoned, who, upon waking up, appears in front of a girl from the magic school. She appears shocked, as she did not expect the spell to take effect. The teacher congratulates her for summoning a kaiji and asks her to explain what just happened. However, the girl turned out to be very fearful, making the cat compare her to Draco. Yes, what a good mother. It turns out that in today's class they had to summon their family members, but that summoning one compatible with you was something that took days. However, it worked for her on the first time, and she didn't understand how she did it. The cat is shocked by how little confidence she has. Unlike her children, she is still dependent on someone, so the fact that he summoned her is no coincidence, and he decides to raise her. In this way, he asks her name. The girl answers that Anne Rosa, but we will tell Annie, who takes a long time to realize that the cat can talk and ends up fainting. Later, classes end and the cat takes Annie to training camp. Here they practice an ice spell, but this piece of ice is just ice cream to Annie, when it was really meant to be an attack. The cat understands that what she wanted to throw were ice icicles, so she makes an example, but with her element of electricity mentioning that it doesn't hurt, it just paralyzes. But Annie doubts that she can do anything like that, because lightning magic is very complicated. The cat answers that it is not so much and repeats the example. Annie asks her to do it again, and when she tries, she manages to get sparks. Seeing that she can do it, the cat mentions that humans rely on spells, dictating what the egret says, managing to launch her lightning with greater power and filling her with joy. Yes, this cat is an excellent mother and teacher. The next day, the cat wakes her up to train. What she will do from now on is get used to the magic, spend all her mana and make it increase when she runs out. The first test turns out wonderfully, however, they are not finished yet, since the Ice Needle spell continues. The first try turns out like the first time, so they must continue training, even if they have no mana. Since those days, Annie has started eating a lot more since training exhausts her too much. We also see the cat following her everywhere. One student even asks if it is allowed to bring family members. The teacher answers that Annie has special permission and that Kai Sid helps her with her research into raising magical beasts. Annie's friends admire how amazing her familiar is, although in the afternoons the cat has free time to go eat, but unfortunately for her there are very few mice in that area, although there are carbuncles instead. Unlike mice, these are more intelligent and agile, but their main feature is their jewel. According to what the teacher said, these have a large amount of mana and are a delight for the cat. Again, we return to Annie, who continues to train to the point of exhaustion, but now falls much faster. This is because he had already used magic in class. That being the case, the cat shows him the new spell she has created, but he is saved because the bell rings for lunch and they leave it for tomorrow. Now we see the cat talking to the teacher, to whom she tells that the mothers Kai and Sid take care of their babies for only 2 years, but that is because their species of magical beast leaves the nest faster than the rest. He knows this because he has raised many species of magical beasts. He mentions that he let many leave the nest, even though they have not reached adulthood. These species could be like our protagonist, Draco, and they all come from the beginner's forest, although the teacher mentions that there are many forests with that name. After this, the cat leaves very happy to learn more, until one of her worst days arrives, and that is when it is her turn to bathe. To her very bad luck, Annie turns out to be very good at water spells. Yes, how convenient. She can even make it warm without using a wand to heat it, but she doesn't like it anyway since the Kaiseets don't bathe daily. Annie replies that it doesn't matter, since due to her special permission she must go to her classes, and like everyone else, she must be clean. But so much bathing seems more like revenge for the strict training she gives her, although for Annie it is her way of saying thank you. Later, they go to the library. The cat tells us that before going to sleep, Annie teaches her to read human letters, which helps them both understand each other better and grow together. One of those days, the summoning circle had a glitch, causing it to connect to the demon world. Several creatures began to come out, and the teacher orders the students to use their best spells. Annie stands in front and eliminates several with the Ecaretto, until a larger demon appears from the circle. However, the cat greets him as if nothing had happened, remembering that she had not seen him in a while, turning out that this demon was raised by the cat. He tells her that he found out that she had been summoned. He immediately went to see the forest and then met Draco, who, from his smell, he knew was his brother, saying that everyone was shocked by his disappearance. However, the cat is much better off leaving them alone now and introduces the demon as one of the magical beasts she raised. And, well, since his son is here, he suggests turning the training field into a dungeon, but his son only came to close the portal since it is very dangerous. However, the cat asks for it as a favor from her mother, also saying that she is raising another girl. Yes, this cat has a lot of children, but her son notices a detail in his mother, and that is that due to the increase in mana she grew 2 tails, which only lengthens her life expectancy, which is good for her to continue taking care of Annie. Thus, the school had a dungeon, where talented magicians were born. Several years later, some students talk about the new teacher, the Ice Storm Witch, who wields an ice spear and a lightning whip, and is always accompanied by a 2-tailed cat. It turns out that Annie will be the teacher at her old school. The cat goes to greet the teacher, whom she thanks for continuing to take care of her son. It is then that the demon appears in his cat form to say hello, since his mother was thinking about going looking for him, but she did not want him to go down the dangerous dungeon, receiving a scolding for treating her like an old woman, and he takes her away so as not to be embarrassed, because as an older demon, he has an image to take care of. Yes, a mother is still a mother. Now we move on to Annie, who is introduced as a new teacher, but turns pale at the sight of so many glances. The cat returns to talk to her, explaining that she is going to teach them very well, and if they don't understand something, they can ask her. This makes Annie gain confidence and she introduces herself to everyone, hoping to get along. In the following days, we meet a student who has a hard time passing level 17, however, she casts very good spells. Annie explains that this is due to her lack of mana, but that it can be increased, considering that she had less mana than her student. This leaves them surprised, and he proceeds to tell her about his grueling training. The next day, the same student leaves to train very early, but finds Annie waiting for her, since she had planned to train her. The cat motivates the student by showing what Annie's ice needle was like and how she still managed to be a court sorceress. With that said, they go to train, and just like her, they make her use up all of her mana. The next day, they do the same, but this time 4 students join in. Sometime later, these same ones complete the dungeon, being congratulated by the greater demon, who only appears as his statue form. This disappoints the students since they had been told that he would appear in his cat form, a rumor spread by his mother, and since he has no other choice, he transforms into a cat. After this, the teacher and current director tells Annie that this year's students are very promising, and all thanks to her. Annie is very grateful and proposes a new teaching method, having the students accept real missions from the guild, in other words, real combat practices. However, this idea involves the support of the kingdom, so Annie is in charge of convincing the royal court, so they approved her idea, and the students go on real missions accompanied by adventurers and soldiers. In case something goes wrong, students will send out a signal to call their teacher. At that moment, they hear the signal and Annie quickly teleports away, thus everyone returns safely. Some got objects, others nothing, and some were scolded. But for Annie, that's the least of it, because what she was looking for is the experience, and for them to come back alive, being happy that they got it. Sometime later, the students graduate, now with a dungeon and guild quests. The academy trained countless magicians, which brought with it new contracts. Returning to Draco, he tells us that the cave became the home of the Kaisi of the forest, and he is known as the Winged Uncle. Every year, couples come to give birth, but one of them had an injured leg because of some humans who wanted her fur. This awakens Draco's fury, and he immediately goes to the kingdom to complain. However, along the way, he encounters several kite seeds trapping the humans. Seeing that the winged uncle arrived, he explains that these were the ones who hurt the pregnant cat, but Draco scolds them because instead of taking revenge, they should worry about the injured cat. However, the humans had threatened to send the forest cats to a distant kingdom. Hearing this, he mentions that killing them could start a war, and that would be much worse. Thus, he orders him to send them to the nearest city to be punished, and yes, they deserve that and more. The cats accept and ask him what he will do, answering that he will go home to help with the birth. Back in the cave, the cats warn that the couple is about to give birth, but also that the cat's leg had healed. His partner tells him that he had used magic to cure her, but Draco scolds him for this, since the babies receive this energy causing them to be born prematurely. Yes, what bad luck. The cat apologizes, saying that he was worried, but in that moment Draco also feels contractions. Draco imagines that she was infected by the cat's magic, so he calms them down to enter the cave, although the most worried are the cat's partners. After this, the cats manage to be born. The younger cats look tenderly at the little ones, and Draco mentions that they were the same a year ago, plus that they could grow up very quickly, and if they don't learn to hunt or use magic, they will laugh at everyone when they grow up. This is how other cats take the children to the Red Cliff to hunt, while Draco stays in the cave. At that, a newborn lunges to bite Draco's paw, sensing that it could be a great hunter. After this, 2 months pass and the cats should eat solid food. The cats get up to go hunt for food with their partners, while Draco stays taking care of the little ones. Right there, the clawed cat goes to play with Draco, and his parents mention that the way he stands looks like a human, so he may end up being a prince's companion. Draco tells us that since that alliance, the cats went to live with the few good humans there are, something that seems very imprudent to him, and that is why he tells the cat with the claw that he should stay and live in the forest, but he does not listen to her because he is biting his paw. This is how 6 more months pass, and the grown cats will learn to hunt and use magic. Draco teaches him transformation magic to make himself bigger or smaller, surprising all the cats, who are distracted by his cat-like appearance. It teaches them that hunting consists of catching their prey, using their claws and fangs to kill it and eat it. Obviously, the prey does not want to be eaten, and this applies to everyone. Without warning, it transforms into a bear, so that they understand that they must escape if they are the prey. In any case, they could defend themselves or counterattack, and it is at that moment that they will know how useful magic is, considering that for many generations cats have specialized in the use of electric magic, but at that point they notice that the cat with the claw had stayed still. Later he meets after a long time with the Prince of the Kingdom, who until now has been the first human to find Draco's cave. For the younger cats it is strange since they have never seen a human and, according to what Draco told them, they were very scary. A cat explains to him that this prince is a friend and there are all kinds of humans. This makes them see him as someone cool, and they feel like going to the human kingdom at least once in their lives. Draco has been hearing for a long time how they want to go to the kingdom, wishing he could have refused the prince's visit. And yes, poor Draco, but well, he's still in the house on another day. However, now they are advancing much further, so the cats are more nervous, although the clawed cat is still very carefree. Carefree! After a while, Draco hears a sound and orders them to climb a tree. It turns out that 3 adventurers are surrounded. Draco explains to them that they are adventurous humans, but the cats notice how different they are from the prince, both because of their robust body and the things they hold. Draco teaches them that humans do not have claws or fangs, and that is why they carry weapons that look like claws, and some use magic. A cat asks him if everyone can use magic, answering yes, but some are more skilled than others. All the cats watch as the adventurers defend themselves and use magic, which leaves the little clawed cat amazed. When they return, they point out how impressive those humans were, especially the little clawed cat, who talks about the human who stored magic in a tree branch. At night, while they were getting ready for bed, the little boy kept talking about what they saw, so Draco had to send him to sleep. The next day, the same little boy is woken up to say goodbye to his older brothers. As he leaves, he sees how Draco gives them a few words and asks them what they each want to do. 2 of the cats answer that they will go to the human kingdom, while the last one wants to create his own territory. That being the case, Draco wishes them the best of luck. Before they leave, the adult cats say goodbye to their little brothers, reminding them to listen to their Uncle Draco, and just like that, they leave the place. Yes, how these kittens grow. Watching them walk away, Draco tells the little ones that now they too must prepare for their own game next year, so he will teach them how to hunt. In a scene change to the nest, the little ones witness the birth of more of their siblings. This sparks some nostalgia in the older brothers, and Draco remembers that Claw and the others were like this just a year ago. This is how the days go by and the newborns begin to take their first steps and are even capable of hunting. Seeing that the little ones are catching up to them, Claw and his little group plan to demonstrate their experience by defeating that beast. One afternoon, they go out to the forest, and when they return, they bring a huge bear. The little ones get excited to see them and start asking them questions. They proudly answer that it was quite easy. However, Draco doesn't think the same, as he reminds them that when faced with bears and humans, they were supposed to hide and run away. They were about to be brutally scolded, but then the elders appear, who tenderly scold them because yes, just look at their little faces. In the end, this news spreads throughout the feline community, with some saying that it is quite impressive. A year has passed and the time has come for Little Claw and his brothers to leave. Drag repeats the same routine asking about his goals. Everyone answers the same thing as always, having children and living there, also going to the Inhuman or having their own territory. But when Claw's turn comes, he confesses that he will become a human adventurer. Yes, just as you heard, a human adventurer. Clearly the others are amazed since it is a cat. Claw tells him that he plans to travel and see different places, so to fulfill that dream, he was trying too hard on something. In that instant, he uses magic and transforms into a human. Everyone gasps when they see this. The cats and Claw think that they should leave before Uncle Draco scolds them, so some of them climb on Claw's head and accompany him to the city. They are dismissed by the little ones while the adults laugh at how strange that game was. Draco likewise thinks the same, although he wholeheartedly hopes that they can live a full and happy life. With this, the problematic young people of the season left, and each of them will lead an unparalleled feline life. But of course, this is a story for another day. On some other day, we see a black cat walking through the kingdom. They tell us that Draco had asked him for a favor, and it seems that the current king had a son. The black cat remembers that the cats of the kingdom had already asked him to go if that happened. Draco also asks him to take a look, however, he repeats several times that it must just be a moment for the cats of the kingdom to look good, and he repeats it several times. Yes, Dracono trusts this kitten. The black cat had already agreed to go, mentioning that, although Dracono likes dealing with humans, he is also very soft with cats and is unable to deny them anything. For a moment, the cat stops, as he has been walking for a while, but he hasn't seen another cat, so he imagines that they sleep at this time to adapt to humans. It is then that he sees a large tower, sensing that this is the castle. To get to the top, use your magic to jump from house to house. While on the wall, he asks what the king's friend's name is to ask where his son is. Seeing an open window, he goes in there, accidentally reaching his son's fourth room. The cat is amazed to see a human child for the first time, who cries harder when he sees him. The cat soothes him to laugh with his tail, comparing his behavior to a kitten. It is then that a woman enters and recognizes the cat as one of those who protects the Imperial Dragon. He tells her that he was just passing by, and accidentally he got distracted, ending in this. The woman understands that that was why he stopped crying, saying that the boy surely likes him. The cat is a little embarrassed for skipping the part of greeting the parents and asks the woman to let them know that he will be back later to see them. The next day, he meets with the king, who had heard that the black cat was able to defeat a bear and makes a fuss about it. Once calm, he asks about his son and if he meets his expectations. The cat answers that it is still too early to say this. The cat next to him reminds the king that their meeting was very different, since it all started because he had bothered her. With that said, he asks the black cat to take the time to get to know his son, as he wants him to get along with the hero cat. The cat accepts and continues seeing the prince cat, but because he is a baby, he cannot know more about him, so they share several years together until he finally becomes a child. He goes in search of Kuraban and listens to the conversation that the king has with the black cat, as if he would have liked to fight against the Demon King's army, but he is not so young anymore, saying that before he constantly went to the forest to be an adventurer. The black cat remembers this very well, since a bear was chasing him, but thank goodness he had come to save him. For this reason, the king greatly respects him and considers him a hero, since no other cat could defeat a forest bear on his own. But the cat answers that it is not so true, since when he was little, he and his brothers defeated a bear, and he is sure that they could also defeat one alone. The king's cat asks Kuraban, the black cat, if he was one of those cats, since they are considered a legend. Kuraban answers yes, although he hasn't heard from his brothers in a long time. It is then that the prince tells him that he has already climbed the tree that he had ordered, and now he wants something more difficult. Kuraban leaves with him but notices that he is now reluctant to touch his tail because he is no longer a baby. Meanwhile, an uproar is created in the street due to the arrival of those who defeated the Demon King's army and went to thank the kingdom for its support. These adventurers do not have a specific country and only fight in the vanguard of other countries. The king received them with great respect, but then Kuraban recognizes his brother, who asks him not to say anything, and thank goodness, Draco is not here to see this, otherwise he will have a heart attack. Later, the prince asks him if he can teach him magic now, but the cat refuses, since a court magician will be his teacher when he turns 8. The boy mentions that today he saw adventurers for the first time, and their presence was imposing, ensuring that adventures make him strong, but he is not sure how strong a king is, so he takes the idea of being a man worthy of being at Kuraban's side. Upon hearing this, the black cat mentions that he knew an interesting boy, saying that to go on adventures he must learn magic and weapons, as well as a language that commands respect. Years later, we see the prince dragging a bear and searching for the guild. To him, it is completely normal, and this makes Crowboy embarrassed by how carefree he is, although he already knew long ago the path the prince would take, which is to become an adventurer. Although it may not seem like it, the prince is still 12 years old, and this surprises the women. Plus, he is always accompanied by his black cat. However, the prince gets tired of dealing with women, since he is still a boy, and asks Kuraban why noble women like gallants. The cat explains that this is his way of hunting, since dancing, grooming, and rumors serve to stalk the prey. The prince considers this a great idea, so he thinks maybe he should learn it. To all this, Kuraban asks him if he has finished the preparations, to which the prince confirms enthusiastically. Now, we move on to the king's party. The prince receives guests from the different kingdoms, which surprises everyone, even his father, who is proud to see that he has settled down. On the other hand, Kuraban talks to other cats about the special event. One of the cats mentions that he will be in charge of casting the spells for the fireworks, so he would like them to see it. Kuraban accepts, thus saying goodbye, saying that he will go see them from the top of the walls. At the same time, the prince asks the king for permission to go and rest until the fireworks. The king authorizes it, acknowledging that he worked hard all day. Thus, we move on to the special event. The king and the guests watch the fireworks in amazement, but out of nowhere, a guard appears warning that the prince has disappeared, and that he only left a written message that said the adventure begins. While the boys ran across the roofs, the king lamented that he had fallen flat in his farce, but even so, he did not bother, hoping only that at least he would do well as an adventurer. Yes, what a good, understanding father. This is how we passed with the fugitives. The prince is eager to start his adventure, thus running towards the neighboring kingdom. When they reach the forest, they sit down to rest, and the prince takes the opportunity to cut his hair with the intention of not being discovered. First of all, think about a name that you will use in the guild, ultimately deciding on Stan. Kuraban warns him that it's already late, so they should sleep. Immediately, Stan climbs a tree and goes to sleep. A confused Kuraban asks what he's doing, to which Stan explains that that's the safest way to sleep. And the next morning, Kuraban wakes up, and the first thing he sees is the half-naked prince. He asks what the hell he is doing, to which the boy answers that he buried his clothes and dressed as a peasant, since if he was dressed the other way, they would discover him. Immediately, he feels a little hungry, so he looks for something to eat. Then he sees a rabbit in the distance, so he immediately runs and starts devouring it. Seeing this, Kuraban is stunned and warns him that he might get sick. Stan reassures him that he has mastered magic to strengthen his body. This leaves Kuraban even more amazed, who watches as he tears off the animal's skin. After this, they venture into the forest for several days. At one point, Kuraban asks him if he doesn't plan to take a bath. Stan answers no, since this way he can better camouflage himself as an adventurer. With that said, he listens closely to the sounds of the forest, hoping to find a wolf, but out of nowhere, a bear roars in the distance. Excited, he tells Kuraban to go. The black cat dismisses the idea, considering it too dangerous, but Stan ignores him, imbuing magic into a branch, runs towards the bear. With no choice, Kuraban decides to intervene, and with his magic, they manage to defeat the bear. After this, they go to the town where they sell the animal's body, and with the money, they buy equipment. While celebrating his first reward, Kuraban tells him that this is not enough, since he must get the appropriate tools for his level, so Stan proposes going on adventures to get useful claws and fangs. The next day, they both leave the town at 1 o'clock in the morning. People send them away while thinking about how suspicious they were, since he was even with a catesip. At that, a woman appears very nervous with a leaf in her hand. When the men read the information, they discover that it is a wanted ad and that the characters were the ones wanted. As a last thing, we are told that shortly after beginning his adventure, the prince gained a reputation as an adventurer, but there was still a long time before he would be called a heroic king. On another day, a white cat tries to convince Draco to let him out of the forest. Draco thought that, like the other cats, he also wants to go to the human kingdom, but the white cat did not think about that, because he wants to go to a place where no cat has gone before to form his own territory. Draco explains again why it is dangerous and simply does not let him leave the forest, but the white cat does not give up, insisting for days that he let it out, until Draco finally gives him permission, but will put a mark on it to know where it is. Now, with this, the white cat finally leaves the forest and reaches a mountain. Draco had already warned him that there are beasts worse than bears in that place, but the cat doesn't care and only thinks about building his ground in that place. Before doing that, he decides to eat. However, he remembers that all the way he found only mice and he wants to try something new, so he goes in search of birds. In a short time, he finds them, but when he was already preparing to hunt, he sees a girl climbing the tree. The cat is amazed when he sees her, but more than anything because he had not seen her, understanding that he knew how to hide his presence to catch a bird. The cat admits that she is a good hunter, but that she had forgotten how to fall and ends up on the ground. The cat comes over to ask if he is okay. The girl, upon hearing him speak, thinks she is hallucinating, but the cat assures her that she can speak. Changing the subject, he tells her that he hunts very recklessly, but the girl downplays it since she is very resistant to falls and she doesn't know any other way to hunt. The cat asks if her parents taught her. The girl answers that she is an orphan, but that she hunts to feed 6 children and a teacher. The cat is obviously amazed that she taught herself to hunt and decides to help her with that. So, out of nowhere, he shoots lightning and they get more food. The cat claims to be so good that his uncle lets him go out alone, although if he saw a bear, he would have to escape. At that point, he notices how the girl knocks the bird down and tells him that she plans to make soup. The cat remembers that a long time ago her brother had invited her for a meal and it tasted delicious, so the girl invites him to eat with her. This is how we get to a chapel. The other children are happy to see the cat carrying the food and are also amazed that he can talk, and that he caught all the prey on his own. Yes, the kitten is quite a hunter. The girl adds that she also hunted a bird, but then a priest appears repeating to Gally that he had already told him not to do it, because he always gets hurt. Gally insists that he is fine, but the cat accuses him of scraping his nose. The priest thanks her for taking care of her and also mentions that it is Gally who makes the soup, although before she leaves he is going to scold her. The cat laughs at this until the children go to pet him and one of them touches his tail. He doesn't like the latter, but he thinks that being an adult cat he should play along, until the beggar boy squeezes his tail, which makes our kitten beg to stop. Gally saves him when she serves the soup and gives his bowl to the cat. He seems very happy since he hasn't tried it in years, but he waits for everyone to finish grazing, and he even accompanies them to Mirren, and when he tastes the soup, he is completely amazed. Gally thinks it tasted very strong, until the cat starts licking the entire plate and thinks of Gally as a soup goddess. Later, Gally takes everyone to sleep and the priest asks the cat if they can talk. Here, we discover that the priest was previously an adventurer as he can use magic on doors and keeps the weaponry he used to use. This is how the cat tells him what his meeting with Gally was like and how much he had insisted on his winged uncle. The priest knows him very well and shows the cat a map so that he can inhabit that dangerous mountain. Even so, the cat wants to see the place in case he finds a good piece of land. The priest invites him to stay, even if it is for a while to regain his strength. The cat plans to stay, but only because of that soup that Gally makes, and he is also worried about his way of hunting, so he decides to stay, and at that moment, a shadow covers the moon. The priest and the cat agree that the only being capable of doing this is Draco. The cat tells him that he can go because he is fine, but the next day he regrets it because of the way they caress him. The cat is saved because school starts. Galen tells her about this, also that she has already learned everything and can skip classes, mentioning that at that time she works as an adventurer. The cat, highly based, does not understand how they give him a job knowing how to hunt, to which Gally replies that he does plant-gathering missions. The cat asks her why they would give such easy jobs to an adventurer, and the thing is that the plant area is usually dangerous for humans, and only people who can defend themselves go there. But the cat also questions her about that because she is not that strong either, to which the girl reveals that this is because she is capable of using magic. On the way, he tells him that the priest taught him since he knows several spells. In that case, the cat asks him why he doesn't use magic to hunt, answering that this is because he only knows how to launch explosions and the prey would be inedible. So we arrive at the guild. The cat mentions that he is smaller than the others. Gally tells him that the big ones are in the capital where the king and important people are. Also, this guild has few visitors, so its size doesn't matter. When she enters, she greets the receptionist, who already knows her, and gives her a mission. As she leaves, the cat mentions that she seems to be the only adventurer, and that's because the rest arrive earlier. In this mission, he must go to the place where they had met. For the cat, this is too dangerous since he is close to the mountain, but he discovers that Gali has faced insects and moles so far, causing him to worry about how weak he is. Already in the place they find the plant, these are usually seen in the forest and are used for medicines. Gali is very careful when she takes it out because if she damages it, it loses value. The cat advises him to use magic and shows him a spell that allows him to easily overtake them. Gali is impressed by this, but as he already told her, he can only use explosions, so she asks him to use his magic. In exchange, he will give more soup for dinner. Yes, you already know the kitten very well. The cat resists but is convinced and fills the entire sack with which they can buy food for several days. However, it is then that the cat hears a sound, estimating at least 3 insects. Gali prepares taking a gun. The cat warns that he is going to catch them when they jump, and at that moment he will explode them with his magic. The first insect comes out and is the same size as the cat, but in the same way it defeats one, but there are 2 others left. The cat holds her with his magic, and that's when Gary launches an explosion, which turns out to be more powerful than the cat expected, and he can launch up to 20 in a row. The reason he doesn't use it on hunting missions is because he is so strong that there is nothing left of the prey, and the cat scolds him for not practicing. Gali replies that he had tried, but it never works out. Until now, the most common thing among adventurers is that they have little mana to cast a spell. However, Gali's case is different, because his problem is the absurd amount of mana he has, and which he has trouble controlling. When they were returning, the cat asks him if he wants to teach him cat magic. In his mind, the cat thought that Gali was going to accept. Even though cat magic is only taught to nobles, this is how Gali learned to use magic and earned more money, with which she gave the cat more soup. Yes, an ideal world, but her perfect plan is ruined because for Gali, it is a lot of work. The cat insists that if she uses magic, everything will be easier. She would be able to hunt better, and she would be able to put meat in her soup every day. She would even finish the missions in an instant, and she wouldn't have to ask him to use her magic for her, to which Gali replies that maybe she will practice it while working around the house. The cat accepts without thinking, swearing that he will make her the best magician of all, although Gali only needs to know how to pull plants. After a few days, Draco goes to check on his nephew, because since he wasn't moving, he suspected that he had made friends with a human, and that's what happened. This makes him think that perhaps there are more humans who deserve the cat's trust, and that is how the white cat and Gali became inseparable friends. But hey, if you've made it this far, comment on the word soup to know that you've made it to the end. Here on the screen, I leave you these 2 handsome videos like the person who is watching this video. See you until next time. Take care of yourself, drink water, take a bath, and bye.